Team building and team performance, a serious topic, but how fun to develop. I am Patrick Magyar, and today my guest is Henk Kraaijenhof, former coach of some of the best athletes of the world and expert in anything to do with high performance. So, Henk, we left it and we couldn't stop at such a clear sentence. It's actually a man's world. And if we want to not have quota, we should change the way hierarchies are being run, are being looked at. And I've myself had several times the impression that you need a different kind of education, of support, especially for young women, where I always had to tell, no, you should state your argument now, because now it matters. And it doesn't help me if you don't contradict me. Whereas very often some of my colleagues had this feeling of, well, but if we contradict, we're losing the good ambience. So I think, having a positive, constructive fight, especially if you have diverse personalities, is what brings you forward.
Absolutely. It's not a conflict in itself. It's more the friction that there is. I show when there's friction, things just happen. I teach my athletes to stand up to me because I'm a coach. I'm this classical white elderly man in a power position as a coach. You dominating the situation. And there's this young female 20-year-old athlete, which is kind of dependent on what the coach wants to do. So I tell them to step up and tell me if I'm making a mistake. And sometimes I make mistakes on purpose. And when they shut up, I just kind of say, hey, why don't you say something? What I just said was stupid. It's even impossible to do. They said, yes, I'll do it. They give them a program which is virtually impossible to do. And they look at me and said, okay, I'll try. So why are you saying you'll try? You don't even try. You can't do this. You know this. Why don't you? Are you? So it can kind of positive assertiveness. Be assertive. Be critical. And be especially critical about me, because I can make mistakes as well. I make a lot of mistakes. I made more mistakes than anyone else. I just try to learn from it. But you should tell me mistakes, because you are going to be the victim of the mistake I made. My misjudgment is going to be on your account. Or you might get injured if I make a mistake.
This is actually an experience I had myself, like being almost 190, bald, big guy. When I say something, I always say it with assertiveness, because if I wouldn't believe what I say, I wouldn't say it. But I always try to encourage people to say, but Patrick, you're wrong, or let's do that. I change my mind. Okay, I admit, I change my mind sometimes quite slowly, in my opinion, but I still do that. But as a general competence, I feel that one of the things that we lose most nowadays is this element, this competence of critical thinking.
Critical thinking is on the decline. We are not educated to think critically. It's also by the media, the social media, as well as television. We're kind of pre-programmed because we are great consumers and also consumers of information. But don't forget that 99% of the information has a purpose for the sender, not for the receiver. It's to sell stuff, it's to sell yourself, it's to promote an ideology somehow. And it's done in such a subtle way, because social psychology has a big power in here, that we know exactly how to manipulate the human mind through emotions, make people anxious. So they start to do stuff because they're anxious, or they don't know how to confuse them. And those are powerful tools which are used against critical thinking. Critical thinking was appreciated in the 1960s, 70s, 1968, but it's on the decline. People don't think. They like to have other people think for them. That's easier. And most of the time it can be okay. But we will see. Most of the time it's not. It's not on their own advantage. It's the advantage of people who are giving the message.
I concur with that, especially and I'm noting that you know there were politicians, if I remember correctly, even American presidents that had the feeling that like I don't know 120 characters or 240 on Twitter are enough to explain the world. And I think this compression of information, while at the same time, what we really know, so the total knowledge of humankind
Yeah.
explodes every day, is somehow not working. So I also feel, I feel myself sometimes, I feel a bit, oh, this is how shall I take that in? You know, when we look at new technologies, etc., I sometimes feel like I'm standing in front of a wall, and I need young people to explain that to me, and then I feel kind of, Jesus, I'm the first generation in millenniums
Mm.
where younger people do not only know more than I do, that was so for our parents, etc., as well, but they have more experience than I do, which sometimes is a bit frustrating. But if I don't accept that,
Mm.
um, I'll have a problem, because I will never handle new technologies the way somebody that is born into them. Uh, so as a traditional coach, you have the same issue, or have you overtaken everybody already?
No, I have been to 5 Olympic Games with my older generation of athletes. I'm still in touch with them after all these 30, 40 years, but most of them are still in touch. Then I took a 14 years sabbatical, basically, and I was requested to coach one athlete, a very young athlete, as a matter of fact. And then my colleagues and my friends said, look, it's different. Because they're watching on the iPhone all the time or the smartphone all the time, and they're just stupid. And I found it completely the contrary. The young generation is extremely smart, knows a lot, not by experience. They replace wisdom and experience by information. And I don't think that's a good thing. I think that wisdom and experience are still very valuable tools to judge information and to make a decision. It's not only information, because once again, that information is pre-programmed by somebody else. It's somebody else's information with an intention behind it. So this is the critical point. They're extremely smart, um, and yes, they're getting used to social media and the information it gives and the internet, and but yeah, still there's somehow the tendency to the illusion of knowledge. You know, the internet and Google give the illusion of you think it because you read it somewhere. You read it somewhere, and that's a danger. What you read somewhere might not necessarily be true. So in the end,
And
they
I
fool.
think that's something that we learned out of sport. There is actually people that learn really well via reading, listening, in a more rational way. And there's people that really learn by own experience, by doing the thing, by having success with it or failing with it, that have a much more emotional grip on what they need to do.
Well, yeah, of course, but it kind of depends um, uh, what you do. If in sport you can learn to tango, you can learn to tango from a book. You have to dance. You have to experience it. If in sport, you can learn it from a book or from a website or through a podcast. You have to learn it by experience because it's your body moving in a certain way. If you learn to cook or learn about history or about any more cognitive topic, then yes. And I think their learning skills are fantastic. They can absorb so much information in a shorter time, this younger generation. So I have a positive view on the younger generation than most of my older or my generation of coaches and instructors. I have a more positive view on them.
Having worked now for what is it, 6 years, very much in the field of vocational training and apprenticeship, I still have the feeling that a lot of people do not value the practical learning, the imitation learning, the being able to do something the same as they do the rational one. People think if I'm not thinking abstract, if I don't study, it's not valuable. To me, for example, it's kind of the only thing I can do. I'm not even properly mowing my own lawn because I'm so stupid with what I do with my hands. And I always admire people that can work as carpenters, the people that can do pottery, etc. It's just it's different talents, and I just have the feeling that we are not giving equal chances to these talents at the moment. The whole rational way seems to be the primed way by everybody.
Well, the funny thing is, of course, that nowadays a plumber makes more money than the lawyer because it's rare to have
Oh, no,
somebody.
no, no. Lawyer always make more money than anybody else. Let's say than a manager or something like that. But
I'm
I
talking about
agree with you. A lot of my friends that are very wealthy are in fact carpenters, kitchen builders, people like that. Absolutely.
Well, the information revolution, apart from the industrial revolution, made that we are more. Everybody wants to sit behind the laptop and Google a little bit and do things on their laptop instead, and working with their hands and working with their bodies. Nobody wants to work in a factory anymore and manufacture things or make nice things like nice chairs or wooden stuff. No, they want to be behind their laptop. They do that's it, and don't burn any calories and don't learn anything basically apart from cognitive factor. We neglect the body completely. It's only brain work we focus on, and in the long term, that will not lead to any good because we neglect the people who are perfect carpenters, people who are handyman, who are very clever, who can do things, the artists who are doing great things.
So where do you believe does that come from? That there's such a unilateral unilateral support of talents. I mean, I remember when I was at school, we were still having craftsman lessons for like 3 hours a week. And today, in many schools, that doesn't exist at all. We just increase
It's the
maths
education
and
system.
languages and an end.
Yeah, it's the education system in Holland. Music education, out. Gymnastics or physical education, out. Handicrafts, working with your hands. I even learned how to make macrame and wood cutting and everything. I wasn't any good at it, but I still liked it. And it's all towards cognitive information about mathematics, about history, about economics, about sociology. It's about that. It's not anymore about using your body to manufacture things, which is a pity and the kind of kind of poverty. I think it's a kind of poverty as well. But it comes from politics. It comes from business that you want to work for a management company or probably as a lawyer or something. And well, who wants to be a carpenter? Who pushes you to be a carpenter apart from your father who was a carpenter maybe?
But we are neglecting so much talent then, because it is not so unisided. As I said, I still have plenty of admiration for people that are able to do stuff like that, and you know, I'm very happy to know good electricians, a good plumber, etc. That do things that I can't do. And sometimes they come to me and say, can you help me with my kids? And they need somebody to help them gain self-awareness. But I always tell them, it's very difficult to gain self-awareness, to understand yourself in purely a mental, a psychological way. Self-awareness also starts with understanding what your body does, reflecting and experiencing your body.
Most of the time it is, and this beautiful book is written, The Body Keeps the Score, about psychological impact or impact of stress or loss on the physical part. We are more body than we realize. You only realize that when it's rather late. You don't take care of your body until you're 50 years old and you start to get some physical problems. Then you start to, the body is limited. I wish I would have taken better care of it. Most of my clients are like this. They're getting older. I wish I would have taken better care of my body. And even elite athletes say, I wish I wouldn't have trained that hard because now my back is gone or something. So you always realize that when you're between 20 and 30, you're invincible and you live forever. when you're 50, you realize you are not invincible and you won't live forever. So this is something that
Yeah, it's this famous quote: when you are young, you throw your health behind the money, and when you're old, you throw your money behind your health.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's absolutely true. So the physical part, or the part of manufacturing with your hands, the handicraft, that's undervalued a lot. We want so-called smart people. Well, you can fill the ocean with smart people. There's many smart people now who are supposed to be smart. But if you look around, where are they, the smart people? We would be in a much better situation socially and politically and economically if we would have smart people. We're not that smart. I mean, smart people are overrated. Smart people are overrated.
It's fantastic that we can finish on the acknowledgement that we are not that smart, and I thank you very much for this discussion, and we will let everybody guess whether we are now going to use the next time to go to the physio or whether we are going to do some sports. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, Patrick.
Thank you for listening to our Mission Team podcast. Do not forget to register for the next episode and visit us on mission-team.com.